Hello and welcome back to the Corhazi Outlook, a Grand Archive TCG podcast centered around tournament results and competitive metagame analysis.
We are here to provide a glimpse into what's being played at larger tournaments and help you prepare for your next big event.
This is episode 25. I am Ken, also known as Chromatic. With me, as always, is Aubrey, also known as Jim, the Eternal. Hello! And today we are talking about Ascent London, the second big tournament of the PTM season. Not too far off the heels of the first one, Ascent Manila, which we had some thoughts about. Sure. But it's a new world.
Yeah.
Relatively.
I think so.
Yeah, a new metagame is slowly beginning to take shape, and we're to talk about it.
Oh yeah, there's been some evolutions. There's definitely been some kind of wild choices, I think, that people have made.
Yeah.
But I'm excited to talk about this brave new world that we find ourselves in.
I am excited as well. So before we get too far into it, Jim, what have you been up to?
Man, it is Store Champ season around here.
It is Store Champ season.
I've been frantically, mostly not preparing, which is kind of my usual style.
I understand.
But I went 3-2 with Ablation, which I think was a poor choice into the meta. And I think many people agree with me that Ablation is a poor choice into the meta.
Surprising, considering how excited everyone was to scream that Ablation should be banned because it's being too toxic. But,
and now people are still playing Ablation for probably the reasons that I played Ablation.
Yeah.
But like, do as I say, not as I do.
I guess so.
And then I went 4-1 with Horse and Taxes. So
Hey.
that worked out pretty well.
Hey, that's
for
a
me.
good one, honestly.
I think it's more a sign that people don't know how to play against the deck than that the deck is good into the field.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty rough thing when your deck basically says, hi, I'm going to upcharge you on everything you want to do.
Yeah. Like, I absolutely won my last round on the basis of my last round opponent going first in the first game and not knowing what deck I was on and just making weird, incorrect choices because he assumed I was on something else.
Yeah, no, I feel that. Yeah, I've been dabbling into Store Champs this season as well. I had some horrendous misplays during my first Store Champs of the season.
As say we all.
As you do sometimes. So I've swapped over to something that I'm more comfortable playing, the Judge role. So...
more power to you.
More power to me, I guess. Yeah, so I've been signed up to judge a few Store Champs this season.
You going to be judging our regionals?
I have gone back and forth on it, but I think ultimately I'm going to play.
Okay.
A lot of people are convincing me that I should play. But I've found that I really enjoy judging the local scenes and Store Champions. I'm not sure how ready I am for the big leagues, as it were.
Sure.
Just because stream judging is something that I'm still a little nervous about. But I did see Ascent Los Angeles judging applications just went out at the time of this recording, so I am considering because I have yet to get my judge shirt, and I would like to at least have a little bit more credibility. But I feel pretty confident about ruling on the local scene, so I feel like I could probably...
You could probably hang. I think I have confidence in you, even if you don't.
Yeah, that's important.
I know for myself, I am stepping back into the role I am more comfortable in for the NorCal regionals, which is casting.
Yes, I'm excited for that.
It's going to be me and Mark from Solar Games, so I'm really excited about that. He's always been a pleasure to sit next to me.
I love your guys' dynamics. So that'll be fantastic.
Good. Yeah, I think that'll go really well.
Yes. I will say, one thing that I've also been enjoying in that regard is even if I'm not playing in a Store Champ, I have been handing people my decks and saying, go my child, and seeing how they do in Store Champs. So if you're in our region and you see someone sitting down across from you, maybe they're playing one of my decks. But they're probably playing one of their own decks. So
probably, yeah. That is going around. I think people tend to play their own decks for some reason. I don't understand.
I don't really get it. But I guess that's what you're here to talk about, and we're here to talk about. So
let's talk about London.
Yeah, let's talk about London.
So let's start with what were we expecting from London, right? I think we got out of Manila. We were like, okay, this is a Manila. This is kind of what we've seen here.
Yeah.
What were we thinking we were going to see going into London?
So Manila, to me, felt like the continuation of the DTR meta. I felt like, in general, it just showed that the decks that were solid there were still solid now, which kind of makes sense when you're transitioning into like a new scene, right? So I kind of expected, maybe we'd see a couple new things sort of percolate and form, but for the most part, we were going to see more of the same. That's kind of where I was at.
Okay, and we didn't really see anything super new in Manila.
No. We saw maybe like a couple new takes on like Fire Aggro. But a lot of it was just a lot of classic win decks. We had a little bit with the new CL Brews. I think that's starting to surge up a little bit in popularity, but not a huge amount. You see the Oblation and also just sort of the Bonk variants, the Coup variants, as it were. But I think in general, we're not seeing anything too crazy as of Manila.
Yeah, my impression of Manila was more that it refined the meta as opposed to evolved the meta. So we saw the introduction of Thurible at a major event, which people understood. People had played with Thurible in the past.
People know that card.
We saw the introduction of Topsy. The Topsy Decree, which was a huge deal here.
Yeah, no, that card is crazy.
And what we've seen was decks kind of did the same things that they were previously doing with slightly better defensive tricks, slightly better answers than they had previously, which I think kind of changed a little bit about the broad viability from the DTR meta.
Yeah, right? I do agree.
Kind of the watchword of DTR was like, anything works as long as you're good at it.
Yeah.
And I think that has changed now that we are in the PTM meta. It seems like Wind just has a few better answers. A lot of these higher level decks have shifted towards like a higher norm focus in order to take advantage of Topsy Decree. We've seen a lot more Unmake Duality come in.
Oh, yes.
And that, that doesn't enable anything, but it does speed up a lot of things.
Yeah, people able to sort of hit that critical mass a bit earlier and being able to plus off of that means that their game plans are able to come online a lot faster. So we're speeding up.
Yeah, and so I think what we're seeing is some of the decks from DTR kind of got these boosts and are doing a little bit better, and some of the decks from DTR didn't get any boosts or maybe are now running into answers that weren't there before and are kind of lagging behind a little bit.
Yeah.
And that separation is what I was expecting to see in London. I was expecting people to sort of drill down into the decks that were working and make them better, and maybe leave behind a little bit the decks that weren't working so much in the new meta.
Yeah. Now, with that expectation in mind, do you think that's what we got?
Oh, no, not at all. Zero shot.
It's a little bit different, as it turns out. So 179 people came in for London. The biggest descent on record, not by much. I believe Utrecht was around 166. Okay. So an extra 13 people.
Yeah. A little bit of a jump.
Yeah. We are seeing more people fly in for this one.
Yeah, a lot more of a U.S. presence, actually, at this one.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, Europe is a much larger combination of nations than just the U.S. Technically, if you go by the data, the United States had the largest percentage of overall people coming into this region, which shows a lot of people are really excited to fly over and play. But yeah, a lot of people really excited for this one. I know anecdotally, at least from our region, a lot of people flew out to this one. So it was really exciting to see how they did in real time.
Yeah, a lot of hometown heroes to cheer for.
Yeah. But in terms of our breakdown for this one, we had, to no one's surprise really, the most popular element at this Ascent was Wind, with 73 decks.
Yeah.
A little over 40%.
Yep, little over 40% of Wind decks. Very slightly less than that in Fire. So Fire and Wind pretty much even. And this is the same mix that we've been seeing since DTR.
Yeah.
Right? Not a whole lot of shift here. 41% on Wind, 38% on Fire, 17% on Water, which is dropping a little bit from Manila. I think really kind of leaning into these are the better decks that we're seeing.
Yeah.
So Wind kind of getting a better foothold into the meta, and Fire kind of keeping pace with Wind at Water's detriment.
I think that makes sense when you consider the breakout Water deck from Manila was the Carpsong Aetherwing deck, and that deck really folds to Topsy Decree.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the deck is very powerful, but we've talked before about the skill ceiling of Carpsong Coda and Diana Aetherwing, and I think that's even more true now with the number of options that are available.
Yeah, Topsy Decree is very much the equivalent of someone just shoving a stick in your bicycle wheel, and then you just go kind of tumbling to the ground, and you just lie there for an indeterminate amount of time. So it is unfortunate to see that happen, but regardless, people are still toughing it out.
Yeah, I mean, it does kind of show, like, there's a little bit of more flexibility to Water aggro than to Fire aggro.
Yeah.
And you really do need to be able to back that up with knowing what your opponent is doing.
It's really true.
Like, just Water in general, you need to kind of know what your opponent is doing and what your opponent is on. And when your threats work in the way that Carpsong Coda does, you're kind of telegraphing what you're doing in those situations. And it's sort of easier for your opponents to defend themselves. So you have to be aware of what they're doing. And, we've harped constantly on multi-pronged assaults on this podcast, right? Like we've talked about, coming in with allies, coming in with champion attacks, coming in with spells, coming in with skills, even if you need to. And, knowing what your opponent is defending against and being able to attack where they're not defending.
Yep.
Yep.
And this is something that I think a lot of Diana players are learning as they go.
It's interesting because it's one of those things where even though it is a multi-pronged assault from this deck, a lot of the prongs sort of flirt with the same area in the field, which is the graveyard.
Yeah. That is the other problem, right? Is with Topsy Decree out there, with Thurible out there, the graveyard has never been easier to mess with.
Yes. So building off of that, the most popular deck we saw at this event was probably to no surprise after Manila Shadow Strike. 24 decks.
Yeah. Before we go too much deeper into this, though, I do want to point out there were exactly 3 decks with more than 10 entrants.
Oh.
And that is a very wide spread of decks.
Yeah.
For a metagame that we have seen kind of showcasing what decks are more powerful. So this is pretty counter to my expectations.
Yeah.
Because I expected these percentages to be higher.
It's interesting to see this because I definitely think that this is a game where everyone has their favorite, right? I think sort of the personification of champions as more than just sort of strategies and archetypes really means that people are playing what they want and not necessarily what is the most powerful. Sometimes those things are the same, but there's a lot of diversity still.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. You know, I mean, I think we've seen it before in kind of regional choices. For example, Merlin in the SEA region. We've definitely seen regional favorites for champions, and we've definitely seen individuals kind of lock into a champion that they prefer regardless of the meta.
Right.
But I don't know, like it's interesting to see that as a difference between games, right? You know, in my history in Magic the Gathering, I'm used to people kind of being a lot more flexible in terms of the decks they bring.
Right.
And in Grand Archive, you definitely have people, championing their favorites here and really leaning into like, this is the deck I am good at, this is the deck I am playing, and I will make this deck good in the meta rather than trying to play whatever is meta.
Yeah. And I do think we are at a point where very often perfecting the strategy that you are good at tends to work a lot better than being prepared to answer a lot of things because there are so many things that you may have to answer with this many types of archetypes.
Absolutely. And, you know, I think that's maybe slightly less true at an Ascent level. I mean, we'll kind of see how that plays out in the rest of the meta, but definitely very, very true at a local level, at a Store Tramps level, even potentially at a regional level. Like, the types of opponents that you're going to be seeing there are definitely the kind of people that you can face by being good at what you're doing, as opposed to by trying to be, trying to fit yourself into the meta. In that way.
Absolutely.
100% agree.
Yeah.
But yeah, that doesn't change the fact that we are seeing a very wide spread of decks here, right?
Yes.
These top 3 decks, Shadow Strike, Seiryu, Water Aetherwing, the only decks with more than 10 people bringing that deck to the event.
Yeah.
Crux Warrior on this list is spread out a bit. 8 of these people are Fire Merlin, which is kind of the Merlin we expect.
Yep.
It's also split into 3 Crux Knight and 3 Spirit Ruler and 1 Water Merlin.
1 Water Merlin. Is that the Water Merlin? I think it is.
I don't think it is. I don't remember now.
Okay, we have a fan.
But yeah, everything after that is single digits. It's all single digits, which is like a decent percentage of the event, right? You know, that's not nothing. But you look at these decks and it's like, they're 6% of the field, they're 7% of the field, they're 9% of the field. And the decks that I would have said, and I think that most people will agree with me, are the best decks in the format are 12% of the field, 13% of the field, 11% of the field.
Yeah.
So people are really, really spread out regardless of what may be the consensus best decks.
It's very true.
So coming off of these decks, the next most popular archetype we're seeing is the good old Luxem Assassin. And this is mostly fire.
Mostly fire, yep. 7 fire decks, 1 water deck, 1 wind deck.
Yeah. So a little bit of old spice and a little bit of new spice in there with sort of the very traditional Luxem.
Yeah, it's a little difficult because Fire Luxem, I think everybody knows what Fire Luxem is at this point. They're kind of used to it. Water Luxem, I think, plays similarly, but has a little bit more of a focus of being responsive to your opponent, as opposed to turboing to 3 and then just doing your own thing, which is, I mean, that's fire.
It is somehow an even more patient deck.
Yeah, and even more of a pain to play against, my god.
Absolutely.
Whereas Wind Luxem kind of turns the formula on its head a bit. I wanna say here, right? Because it's more focused on that mid game, not in a reactive sense, but in a matching its opponent and potentially trying to steal a win early before even going up.
Yeah, kind of like a choose your own adventure.
Sure.
But you really got to see what's on those pages before you go forward.
But of course, the most popular in this archetype is definitely Fire.
Yeah,
And Fire Luxem is the deck that people expect you to be talking about when you're talking about Luxem Xander.
Yeah. This is kind of tried and true. Everyone knows how this deck plays. So you got to be ready for it. Coming in after that, we have, astonishingly enough, we have 8 Wind Allies decks.
I don't get it.
I don't know. They are just here. They are doing their thing.
I mean, one of them made day 2, right?
Yeah. I don't know how that happened. Listen, I don't begrudge the Wind Allies players because I do think that there should be at least a couple good Wind Allies archetypes in this game just so that we have the full spread. I'm just really surprised, though, that the ones that are here.
Yeah, so honestly, I think this reflects people trying to figure out the metagame.
Yeah.
And maybe it worked, maybe it didn't. Because this is a lot more Wind Allies by percentage than we have seen at any other event in a long time.
Yeah.
So I think this is really showing, like, okay, if you're going to mess with the graveyard, if you're going to have a bunch of spell defense, I'm just going to come in with allies. What are you going to do about it?
This is like a full circle on like the rock, paper, scissors kind of thing.
Yeah, the kind of answers that we're seeing are answers that are good against stuff like Oblation, that are good against stuff like Arcane Blast, that are good against stuff like, Lightweaver's Assault or whatever.
Yeah.
And people are like, all right, well, if you have answers to those decks, do you have answers to going wide?
Turns out, maybe not.
Maybe not, yeah. So I think this is what they're doing here. I think they're asking that question.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure the answer is necessarily the one they wanted.
Yeah.
Because I think Wind Allies is still not in a super great place. Like, there's a lot of good defensive tricks for allies. There's a lot of ways to clear the board.
Yeah.
And that's kind of tough for any allies-focused deck.
I think this is very much a do this to startle your opponent, and also do this if you are just a diehard Wind Allies fan and you know this archetype in and out, and you've just... if you're just the scrappiest player on the planet,
This is, I think, the first time we've seen more Wind Allies players than aggro players. And even then, Fire Aggro is split, right?
Yeah.
We have 4 Fire Assassins out of these 8 Fire Aggros, which is Merlin now.
The new Merlin.
Categorically Merlin.
Yep.
Xander and Tristan are bygones. We will never see their like again.
Sad.
Everybody welcome our ponytailed overlord.
Finally. Been waiting for this moment.
We have 2 Fire Lorraine aggros.
Yep.
1 Tony doing the Guardian things.
Yeah.
And 1 CL doing automaton things.
That is not the combination that I expected.
No, really not. Really not.
It's cool. It's great to see.
Yeah, but so this is a lower percentage of Fire Aggro, which this is actually something that I expected, right? We've seen Fire Aggro doing worse and worse and worse over the course of not only DTR, but into PTM.
It's all downhill from here.
And I wonder if some of the previous, maybe Suzaku players were like, okay, well, this isn't cutting it. Let's try Wind Allies.
Yeah.
Let's try doing something with a little bit more staying power, a little bit less aggression, more playing to the board, more playing tempo.
Yeah. That makes sense after seeing the spell focused damage of Suzaku. Maybe people are like, we're gonna hit him from the other side. We're just gonna go all boots on the ground.
I think it would be really interesting to see what some of these players have played in previous events.
Yeah, actually.
Right, to kind of make that comparison and see how they got to where they got to.
That would be fascinating.
At least one of the Wind Allies players is Team True Isaac, who has historically been on a lot of fairly aggressive decks as well.
Yeah.
So this is somebody who has been playing Fire Crux Lorraine in previous events.
Yep.
Some Fire Aggro, some Fractals, which is like an aggressive deck.
Yep.
I mean, a person with a lot of range.
Yeah.
But also someone with a lot of history on Wind Allies that knows the meta for sure, right?
100%.
This is a person that you'd expect to be making very reasoned decisions about what he's coming into. And he decided to bring Wind Allies.
I would love to hear insight into his thought process for doing that. Perhaps I should tune into their podcast. That's not a cross promotion, but
But it could be.
But it could be. They do good work over there.
But yeah, there's also a lot of overlap between Wind Allies and Wake Up now, as Wake Up kind of introduces more ally elements, more attempts to do things like Mortal Ambition or unique ally approaches with Oath of the Sakura, and a lot of cross-pollination between the two decks as they're trying to really evolve it into a point where it is more resilient against all of the different threats that are out there.
100%. Beyond this, there are so many archetypes.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of decks being played here.
We will not cover them right now. In fact, the best way to cover them is by talking about day 2.
Yeah, no, fully agreed. I think we move on and we talk about what succeeded here rather than the also-rans.
Yes.
Because there are a lot of also-rans.
Many also-rans.
So let's start with the day 2 stats now.
Yeah, let's see it.
All right, so we see a huge shift into wind. This is the leading story in day 2. 56% of day 2 is wind.
Now that's what I expected.
29% of day 2 is fire.
Okay.
And 15% of day 2 is water.
Okay.
So this is a huge acquisition from wind compared to Manila.
Yeah.
This is people at Manila were like, oh, the decks that I am good at, or the decks that I've decided to bring here, aren't doing well into the wind that other people have brought.
Yes.
I'm going to bring wind instead.
Yep.
50%, more than 50% is wind. I don't remember the last time we had this kind of meta.
This is a very windy scene that we are seeing here.
Of course, fire still has a large presence.
Yeah.
Which is expected,
Right.
right? And water really did not do particularly well, which again is kind of expected.
Right?
Yeah.
I think in terms of what you have to face sort of in this big, broad day 1, I think there's a lot of bullets you need to dodge, and you can't dodge all of them.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
But yeah, lots of wind. And the bulk of wind is dragon, which again, what I would have expected.
Dragon is just solid comfort food for some.
Dragon is 30% of the day 2 field.
Oh my god.
So this is a lot closer to the numbers that I was expecting. When I saw Seiryu at 11% of the field in day 1, I was like, what are these people doing? And the answer is the people who brought Seiryu won.
Yeah.
And they converted at a 50% rate.
That's insane.
Compared to the average 19%.
Actually just crazy numbers.
Yes. 10 Seiryus out of 20 in the field made it to day 2.
Did we have numbers this crazy during the slime meta?
I feel like we must have.
We probably did.
Okay, so I found that answer.
Yeah.
Which is, if you look at Chicago,
Yep.
60 Slimes decks in day 1. 14 Slimes decks in day 2.
Okay.
Which is 43% of the day 2 meta.
Yeah.
So took over more of day 2.
Right.
But also converted at a lower rate, I think because it was so much of day 1.
Yeah, true.
Right? If you look at how little Seiryu there was in the field, these are people who are dedicated to Seiryu or are good enough to recognize how good Seiryu is into the field and also good enough to handle kind of picking up the deck that they think is going to work out the best.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But honestly, that's a lot more impressive number-wise than back in the heyday.
Yeah, I think so, because if you think about back in the heyday, like everybody was just playing the deck that is the most popular.
Yeah.
Everybody is playing the deck that is perceived to be the best, which is absolutely not what's happening here.
Right, absolutely. People are sort of picking their favorites.
But yeah, 10 out of 20 Seiryus made it in 30% of day 2.
That's so crazy.
So next behind Seiryu is Shadow Strike.
Yep.
Which this is also, I think, the deck that people expected, right? The top 3 decks in the field are the top 3 decks in day 2 in a little bit of different ratios, but still here.
Right.
So Shadow Strike didn't convert nearly as well as Seiryu, obviously,
really
but
did not.
nearly as well as almost anything else. This was one of the more popular decks in the field, and sub 50% win rates, let alone conversion rate. The conversion rate was 17%. This did not convert at the rate we expected it to.
No, that's much lower.
So we have a lot of people playing Shadow Strike, and not as many people making it into day 2.
Yeah.
But there's still a decent amount of day 2 with Shadow Strike, just because there are a lot of Shadow Strikes in the field.
Yeah, for sure. I think, obviously this is the most popular deck. And it's also a deck with a much higher skill ceiling. And facing into this much stuff, I think it must be a little harder to sort of interact and adapt sometimes.
Yeah, I think the thing to worry about is when the most popular deck is also the same ratio of presence in day 2, and showing the strength of Seiryu here, even though it's not the most popular deck, is, I think, indicative of like, okay, everybody brings the deck that is most popular. How many of them make it to day 2?
Yeah.
Right? And in this case, some, but not nearly as many as some of the other decks that might have been a better choice into the meta.
Certainly.
Right. And then Water Ether Wing Diana, of course, in 3rd place with 9% of day 2, which is actually a pretty good conversion rate. So 3 decks in day 2 out of the 11 that were brought.
Okay.
So 27% conversion rate,
Oh, yeah,
which
that's not
is
bad.
good.
That's pretty
like
good.
anything above 20%, like that's a good
Yeah.
conversion rate.
No, excellent.
And then after that, we see a lot of 2-ofs, a lot of 1-ofs, and at this point, the stats are kind of out the window.
Yeah.
Because some of these 1-ofs are 1 of 1, so it's
Yeah.
like 100% conversion rate. Which, like, what do you do with that?
Yeah, exactly.
Congratulations, Wind Luxem player, the one.
The
You did it.
one Windluxem player.
And then you also have something like people playing Fire Merlin, where 1 out of 8 made it into day 2
Yeah.
for the actual worst conversion rate for
Woof.
any deck in day 2.
I mean, she's hanging on.
Yeah, I mean,
just
this
by a
is
thread.
another thing of like, okay, the deck is still popular, even though it's not particularly well suited.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So this is maybe not the best choice going into this meta.
Suited, mind you, is an archetype that did not convert.
Correct. There is no suited
There is
here.
no suited here.
But yeah, a whole lot of 1-ofs going down the list. We'll start with the 2-ofs, right? So
Yep.
2 Wake Up decks,
Yep.
2 Horse and Taxes decks,
Okay.
and 2 of the Umbra Guardian Coup decks, as opposed to the
Yeah,
Oblation decks, right?
right.
I want to note here, one Oblation.
One
in day
Oblation.
2. I wanted to say no Oblation because that would have made my point better.
Right.
But 1 Oblation in day 2.
Still, 2 is a bigger number than 1.
Yeah.
Coup decks are just that much better.
Yeah, well, they are actually, because
Yeah.
there were less Coup decks in the field than Oblation decks.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
2 of them made it 1 Oblation. With numbers of these size, it is hard to look at the stats and draw any reasonable conclusions. However, this confirms my priors, so I am going to draw an unreasonable conclusion,
Yes.
which is that Coup is better than Oblation, and Oblation is not well suited.
We
to the
will
meta.
continue to lord this over the Oblation players. Hello, former Oblation player, now a Coup player.
Right, yeah, absolutely. And then this, like, the long list of 1-ofs. We have the 1 Oblation, the 1 Fire Merlin, the
Yep.
1 Spirit Ruler Lorraine.
Yeah.
We do have one of the Aggro Diana decks, a Fire Aetherwing deck.
Yeah.
1 Fire Slimes made it into day 2. Okay, so anything can make day 2,
Anything can make day 2.
which is a kind of a kick in the teeth for the 8 Exia players that didn't make day 2.
I want one of you to get in here one day. Please.
Right? So there are a couple of, like, 4 people brought this deck, 1 of them made it to day 2.
Yeah.
2 people brought this deck, 1 of them made it to day 2. With Fire Merlin and Wind Allies, 8 people brought this deck, 1 of them made it to day 2. So you can draw some conclusions here just on the number of zeros
Yep.
in day 2. There's definitely some decks that, like, even if you feel confident on them, even if you are very strong with what you're working with, you need to have something that has some gas.
Absolutely.
But yeah, widespread.
Yeah. People definitely brought the gas in many different flavors.
Absolutely. We even have the Wind Umbra Ranger from the end of DTR season.
Oh, yeah. This is a deck that I was definitely expecting to see appear in some shape or form, and I'm glad that it did show up.
Yeah, this is 1 of 4, so I think
Yeah.
it's still like the people who know are
Yeah.
playing it.
Yeah.
But it's definitely not the powerhouse that it was when nobody knew.
This is, yeah, now that the sauce has leaked a little bit, I think people might be a bit more ready for it, but also, like, this is a deck that will take you by surprise if you're not ready for it, and you will be punished for it.
Yeah, 100%, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I also know the person who brought this is a very strong player, so.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so we can condense these numbers a little bit by looking at them in terms of the archetype breakdown. We can
Yes.
kind of aggregate some of these very, very different decks into the archetypes that they belong to,
Yes.
and how their game plan approaches sort of dealing with their opponent, et cetera, et cetera.
All right. So let's talk about it.
And it's the same goddamn numbers.
This
everybody
is
expects.
that's a bell curve if I ever saw one.
It is a bell cliff. It
bell
is
cliff.
it is 22 mid-range decks.
That is a-
65% of the decks are mid-range.
That is a bell tower. Pillar.
Yeah, we've got all of our Shadow Strikes here. We've got all of our Seryus here. We've got the bulk of our Dianas here.
Yep.
We have the bulk of our CL decks here. And all of these decks are the decks that want to go up to 3 relatively fast and then throw threats at you until you keel over.
Yes.
And this is my favorite comparison is it's aggro that starts on turn 4.
Yep, but boy, when it starts, it does not stop.
Yeah, and this sort of approach to Grand Archive has worked out very well, especially recently.
Yeah.
With the kinds of defensive tricks that are available, and the speed bonuses that they have gained in this meta. I think Unmake Duality probably figures in the majority of these decks.
Yes, Unmake Duality has been a huge boost.
So we're seeing a lot of Unmake Duality, we're seeing a lot of Topsy, we're seeing a lot of ways to deal with your opponent trying to mess with your own game plan, and we're seeing a lot of ways to mess with your opponent's game plan that kind of lets you get to 3 almost on your own terms, as long as you're not relying on the graveyard too much.
Yeah. If you're relying on the graveyard to get a lot of float, you're gonna maybe run into a little bit of trouble.
Right? It says something that most of these Guojas are not blue.
It's true.
There is one Genbu that made it.
There is
one,
but he is him, and we'll talk about him.
Yeah, so the bulk of people are in mid-range, and instead of the usual bell curve, we have a sort of a... What does the shape even look like? I don't know. It's got wings.
It does. very stubby wings.
Yeah, right? We have the 4 aggro players for 12% of the field. We have the 6 combo players, which is a lot of wake up.
Yep.
For 18% of the field. And this is... Wake up is almost aggro combo. It's like one of those things that's like, I don't know exactly how you want to define it.
It definitely skirts the lines of it, you know?
But for aggro, we have a Fire Aetherwing deck.
Yep.
We have a aggro Diaochan deck, actually, the Fire Bloom deck.
I love seeing this deck.
Right? And we have, of course, our 2 Horse and Taxes decks in this sort of aggro jump. And then for combo, yeah, it's mostly Wake Up, but we do have 1 Fractal deck here as well.
Yes.
So a little bit of a combo spike here.
It's back. A little control combo,
Maybe,
if you will.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
And then we have our 1 Wind Allies deck in tempo.
Yeah.
And we have our 1 Genbu deck in control.
Yep.
And these ones sort of represent these like little the dips in the curve.
Little stubbies.
So yeah, the bulk of the field is mid-range.
Yeah.
And that has not changed in many in Ascent.
I can't say that I hate it, but because inevitably the mid-range all feels different in its own way, even if kind of the bones are kind of similar. But, you know, we still somehow have a lot of diversity.
Yeah, and this says like the best strategies that are available right now is going to 3 and doing strong things at 3.
Yep.
That's what you want to be doing.
Level 3 meta, everybody.
Absolutely.
Yep. So we did allude to the fact that there is a lot of diversity, a lot of interesting decks. So we're going to talk about them.
Heck yeah.
In the decks that we thought were neat. And to start things off, we're going to talk about 33rd place, Sun Goryo on Fire Slimes Sylvie. It's just a Slimes deck. I just think that's neat.
Honestly, that is pretty neat. It's been a while since we've seen Slimes doing well.
Yeah.
So I like to see what changed and what, you know, kind of what makes this Fire Slimes a little bit more competitive than Slimes used to be.
Well, the biggest thing here is the addition of 3 copies of Undeniable Truth, which is another sack outlet for your allies that also lets you draw cards.
Ooh, so
that's
extra
a bit of
cremations.
cycling. Yeah, little extra cremations. And that's also great because, you know, Slimes in your graveyard mean big, good explosion later when you pull out your Gaia's Blessing. And that's fantastic.
Yeah, Undeniable Truth is actually really interesting in this deck because it lets you sacrifice something. It lets you get the thing in the graveyard immediately. And while the preparation counter I don't think is actually used anywhere in this deck.
I don't believe so.
It's more of like a card neutral way to put your slime into the graveyard.
Yeah, which is great.
Yeah, you wouldn't think that'd be so powerful, but it does seem like it has a lot of strength.
It does. I mean, also you do have the baby silvers here, which really just want to get.
That's true. They want to jump into the graveyard as fast as possible.
Exactly, and that's just ways to go plus on that, which is great.
It's also cheap. It only costs 1.
Yeah.
So like you can reasonably play your liminal and then get it into the graveyard immediately.
That's true. You can do that too.
I kind of love that.
It's a lot of versatility here. They've also got the dual spirits, which I like to see because that just shows that you have a little bit of interesting nuance in your turn 1 decisions, which I like. So that's pretty neat. In 31st place, we have, as we've alluded to, Team True Isaac on Wind Allies.
And this is kind of a bog standard Wind Allies deck, isn't it?
This is just classic Wind Allies. Like, what can I really say? The spiciest thing we have here is the Bladed Riftseer, which is a 2/3 for 3, but it has True Sight if you're level 1, which is relevant because Cheshire Cat exists.
Absolutely. I mean, Cheshire Cat does still have 3 life.
Does still have 3.
So you need to do a little bit of work in order to get this Bladed Riftseer killing a cat.
You do.
But I don't think it's that hard to do that much work. I mean, it is a human, and we all know how Wind Allies feels about humans.
Yeah, I mean, we have Brisk Windtrotters here to back it up, to buff it so you can kill them. We also have Phalanx Captains being run, which I don't think you typically see in most Wind Allies lists, which is surprising to me because this is just an anthem with the body.
Yeah. Giving your pretty much your entire field +1 is pretty strong.
It's pretty great. And then you've got Sunsa, Shang. I'm pronouncing those horribly. I'm sorry. But
can we also talk about the Expeditious Opening and Eternal Magistrate?
Oh yes. No, Expeditious Opening is quite delicious here.
I mean, we have the Growsword also, so there's like a decent. Actually, looking at this, there's Dream Fairy with Expeditious Opening. There's Windtrotter with Expeditious Opening. There's Eternal Magistrate with Expeditious Opening.
No, this is a lot of fast speed tricks you can do here. Actually.
Yeah.
Okay. No, there might be more to this than we thought.
This deck might have some gas.
I actually really like this. No, this is really great to see. We're also seeing some other manipulation here through the use of things like Enfeebling Orb to sort of mess with your opponent's interaction lines. The Clarent obviously is good to protect your board or protect yourself. Hwaji is just a good card. We love Hwaji.
Absolutely.
And
okay, I'm going to out myself as not being entirely up to date on rules knowledge.
Okay.
But if you Expeditious Opening a Lurking Assailant,
Yes.
can you ambush? We're gonna play the Jeopardy theme here while Ken looks up the answer. Because you only retaliate in the retaliate step. You have opportunity in combat.
I'm thinking you can, because you can respond between the attack declaration and the retaliation declaration.
Yeah, right?
Judges, sound off in the comments if we're right.
I'm suddenly a lot more excited about Wind Allies.
Oh, yeah. Bam. Isaac, you've done it again. Very cool. Well, see you next door, champs, on Wind Allies, I suppose. In 17th place, we have Dinky Dane on Fire Diao Chan, which there's nothing really crazy about this list. I just like to see it.
Sure. I mean, I think it is helpful to highlight some of the decks that might not get as much press.
Yeah.
Because they are a little bit lower on the rankings. And the Firebloom deck is definitely a deck that can get there.
Yeah.
This is one of those decks that's like, if you're not prepared for it, it'll really do you dirty.
Zeus has done a few streams where he sort of talked about his thought process when playing Fire Diao Chan, and he's also talked about his list. This looks very similar to the list that he has mentioned, maybe with a couple cards difference. I think the sideboard looks a little bit different than what he's talked about in the past, so maybe there's been some iteration there, or Dinky Dane has sort of taken it upon himself to sort of adjust for his local meta. But either way, this is a very fast low-to-the-ground deck, which if you can get under them, you can just blitz them into the ground in the blink of an eye.
Yeah, for those unfamiliar, one of the things that this deck does very well is if you draw Firebloom Flourish, you get to win the game.
Yes.
Firebloom Flourish allows you to just refill your hand, essentially.
Yes.
Fire Aggro is notable for running out of gas after the first couple of turns.
Yeah.
You throw all your cards at your opponent, and then you have no cards left to throw at your opponent.
Yeah.
So Firebloom Flourish gets you those extra draws that you need in order to continue throwing cards at your opponent.
It is the reserve tank.
It is busted, is what
It
it
is
is.
very busted, especially if you get 2 or 3.
It means that the Diao Chan decks can be really polarizing, right? There can be a lot of variance, because if you don't draw those Firebloom Flourishes, you really have to be careful about how you're using your cards, because you don't have that extra refill. You have to kind of fire off a little bit slower in order to make sure that you can actually continue to play the game.
Yeah. We do have a couple other decks like this where it's just if you need to see one specific card to get your engine online. If you don't see it in your opening turns, you kind of have to play a different, slower game.
Right.
But if this one hits it, it's going to hit you really hard.
Yeah, I'm thinking there's some similarities here with the Fire Aetherwing deck as well.
Yeah.
Because if you don't draw the draw to,
you
kind of have to play the game a little bit differently.
Yeah, you have to be a little bit more conservative in how you play it.
Yeah, and I think the same thing holds true here. If you're not drawing the flourishes, you kind of need to adjust your playstyle in order to adapt for that, which really hurts the deck because you're just not in the same position. You don't have the same kind of power.
Thankfully, it looks like Dinky Dane drew just enough Firebloom Flourishes to get.
Yeah, I mean that's the other thing is it is a 4 of. You draw them frequently enough, and the deck has a lot of power.
Yeah. So fantastic. Well, I'm glad it worked out for Dinky Dane, because I love seeing this deck at the top. Almost as much as I like seeing this next deck. In 15th place, we have Steve. His name is Herman, by the way.
Oh, okay.
On Wind Number Diana. So if you've looked at the Advanced Elements deck tech where they broke down this list for their Akihabara run, they were basically saying that like if the DTR meta went on a little bit longer, this would kind of become the boogeyman. It hasn't quite become that here, but it can sneak up and take you out if you're not ready for it. And Steve is the kind of player who I think can take this to the ultimate level and just really push all the way through.
Yeah, I think this is another one of those decks that kind of looks like something else long enough for you to be able to kill your opponent because they're making the wrong move.
Yeah, there's like a lot of generic wind good stuff that ends up in this deck that just sort of forms sort of the core engine to just get your influence up really high, like your Windmill Engineers, your Reclaims, your Ascent Protectors, your Turbocharges and Unmake Dualities obviously are going to get you a lot of cards. And then you sort of start to see things that aren't quite right, like Focusing Rounds, and you're like, what's that doing there? Oh, it draws you a card, and then a Baby Green. What's it? You blink that, and you're like, what's going on there? And then they Dungeon Guide up to 3, and they Taser Lock you, and you're just dead.
Right, yeah. I mean, I think this has the same thing going for it that Horse and Taxes does.
Yeah.
Because Horse and Taxes, especially now, if you go turn 1, Spirit of Fire, Looking Glass, you could be any of like 3 or 4 or 5 different decks.
Yeah.
And nobody is going to think you're Vanitas until you go to Vanitas 1.
Exactly.
And that, winning that game 1 off of that kind of misdirection is actually pretty viable as a game.
That's a huge advantage that you suddenly put yourself at, which is great.
And I think this deck can do the same thing. I think if this deck were more popular, it wouldn't do as well.
Yeah.
Because people would know how to play into
People would
it.
start to tech it. If there's like 1 or 2 just lurking out there and they just come and get you when you least expect it, then it's really good.
Yeah.
And yeah, some of the tricks in this deck, we're gonna peel the curtain back just a little bit because Displace is kind of the core of what makes this deck really go off. Because
heck yeah.
playing a Dungeon Guide and displacing it to go immediately to 3, do your thing, is really, really good. Soul's Envelopment focuses its role as extra copies of Displace. But despite that, there's also like a lot of weird, tricky stuff you can do here. Like if you have a Dream Fairy or a Baby Green Slime on the board and you have a Displace in hand, that means you can screw with the board in ways that your opponent maybe did not expect.
Absolutely.
So there's a lot you can do there. Also 4 copies of Regal, because when you go off, you really need to make sure that they can't do anything to you. So
yeah, I think this deck really shows off kind of the way that Wind approaches utility.
yeah.
Which I think is very, very cool. Wind kind of as an element, I'm not sure. I'm not going to say that it lacks identity, but it's not as easy to encapsulate its identity in the same way that you can for Fire and Water.
It's like tricky and synergistic in ways.
Right. It's sort of, Fire is the aggressive element, Water is the controlling element, and Wind is the utility element.
Wind is like the better than the sum of its parts. It's like you can have a small breeze that suddenly picks up a little bit, and then suddenly there's a horrible rushing gale, and why is all my stuff in the air? And
Wind is a bard. It just does whatever it wants.
It does. It plays whatever it wants. You get distracted, then you're dead.
But this deck really showcases Wind's approach to utility, right?
Yes.
The way that Wind does things like mess with the battlefield. The way that Wind does things like mess with how you attack their allies.
Yes.
Wind is doing some very cool things here.
Yeah. So congrats to Steve. It is great to see this, and I'm really curious to see what you'll bring next. I really hope it's your Astro Diana. I know you've been talking about that. I want to see it. I don't even know if he listens to us.
Somebody has a vested personal interest here.
It's okay. He's still a hero in my heart. In 14th place, another hero in my heart is Ali on Win Luxem Xander.
Wow, yeah. So this is the SoCal special, isn't it?
Yeah. He brought it back just for this. Down to 60 cards.
Whoa!
That's crazy.
Mind blown.
Yes. We love to see this deck, even though I don't know how to play it. I've tried playing it. It was really difficult. I dare not do it again.
Yeah, I think this deck is actually harder to play than Tristan.
Yeah, it is. You really need to know what lane you're in, and by the time you figure that out, it may be very, very late.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of things that it's doing that are the same as Tristan, but Tristan only has the one game plan, even if you're kind of taking several different avenues to get up there.
Yeah.
Whereas Wind Luxem is doing things in kind of multiple different directions, and you do have to pick a lane because of the way that the various elements support that kind of plan.
Well, I will say the lane that it looks like he picked was drawing more cards, because boy, we have the Unmake and the Turbocharge doing good work. And we have Return to the Archives in here. We have Fluffy Shopkeeps doing things. We have all these things. The Luxem sites are in the board.
Whoa.
We only have 4 Lightweavers in the main.
That's wild.
That's pretty crazy. And then he's got a bunch of utility to come in, should he need to. He was ready to face other assassins, too. He has 4 Stolen Chance on the board, so he's ready to go. So, yeah, it's really cool to see this list. I still don't know how to play this for the life of me, but I am really glad to see Ollie doing work and placing so high with this deck.
Yeah, Ollie's been kind of a long time proponent of this deck, right?
Yeah,
This is a player who has played this deck in a variety of different events.
Definitely.
And, to some success, right? He's a very good player.
Oh, no, yeah.
So it's really great to see kind of what he's doing and how he's doing it and where he's getting in the different areas of the meta. Like, I love to see this kind of exploration of, I think this meta is ready for me to bring my pet deck back. And then he comes back and, like, top 15 in one of these Ascents. Like, that's pretty good.
Like, fresh off of Aki with one of his own created decks, he comes and brings this back, and he's just, kicking butts.
Yeah, fantastic job.
So, congrats, Ollie. In 12th place, we have Axis 261 on Horse and Taxes. If you're not ready for this one, you're gonna feel it in the morning.
Yeah, and this is, I think, exactly what you would expect from sort of the modern incarnation of Horse and Taxes.
I'll tell you what I didn't expect here. Tigers.
So I've actually seen Tigers in a couple of other Horse and Taxes decks before.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. But people have kind of struggled with what to do with the deck since Ryle got banned.
Yeah.
Because Ryle was such an important value engine for this deck.
I will say, like, this is not really what I expected to come out of this deck, was just to have more Tigers. But I think Unmake Duality is probably a decent replacement for Ryle.
I think so.
Yeah. Lava Heated Brew also seems to be standing in here doing a little bit of work. It's a nice way to sort of cycle some stuff into the graveyard and do a little card cycling.
Yep.
I like that quite a bit too.
You
can sort of pad out your life total a little bit because you're a big boy who levels up fast.
It's true. Yeah, I think Lava Heated Brew is actually really interesting because it is a creative shock with the neutrality of the card not being a card in hand, but a floating memory in the yard.
Yes. It is dangerous, mind you, with all the Topsies running around. But,
Absolutely.
Sometimes it works. That's why it's only a 2-of, though. Mm-hmm. So, but this deck is still doing work, and it can definitely catch you off guard. It was also definitely prepared to play against Ether Wings because it's running a Verucan Acolyte in the main and 2 Verucan Acolytes in the main board. So,
this deck loves the Acolytes, actually, because some people will just drop out Censor on turn 1, and then you have to be ready for that.
Exactly.
You have to be able to
you blow it up, and it's like, oh, I have a 3-1. Mm-hmm. Fantastic. So that's cool. So grats to Axis on that finish. In 10th place, we have Casual, capital L at the end, with Wind Wake Up. No level 1 champion to be found. This is just Wind.
Mm-hmm. And this is, I think, a lot of what Wind Wake Up looks like these days. I mean, there's still a lot of variety in terms of whether or not you bring a champion at all, and if there's any class bonuses that you think are going to be useful to you, decks that bring a warrior and try to use Rallied Advance, or decks that try to take advantage of some of the assassin bonuses.
Yeah.
And in this case, what we were seeing that I think is a little interesting is Invective Instruction.
Yeah, this is kind of, I think this might have been a wake-up staple back in the day, but we're seeing it sort of show up again as a good way to pump the ally that you're going to swing with on that sort of key turn. Mm-hmm. We're also seeing Dodge Roll come in here as a bit of a non-attack damage tech.
Yeah, I really like Dodge Roll in this deck. I like anything that you can use to save your ally.
Yeah.
Especially if it's also a distant enabler. Like,
huge.
Any card that can do that kind of double duty feels like it's very, very strong in this deck.
Yeah, and we're also seeing a lot of 1-ofs in Wind, which kind of makes sense because we're running Fairy Whispers, so you can sort of tech them as you needed. Vertigus Decree, Veiling Breeze, a Dilu, in case you got to smack him with a big horse. Sometimes you got to. So, very good stuff. And then even more tech on the board. So you can kind of adjust your ratios as you need. So good stuff for Casual. And in 9th place, we have KLVR on the Fire Coup CL. One of the best performing CLs of the event, I believe.
Yeah.
A lot of tech here, for sure. It's interesting to see sort of how the attack distribution goes on here. I think we're seeing Devastating Blows here to supplement the Beguiling Coups. And then some tech in the form of Abnegation, Nocturne's Oblivion. Undeniable Truth is showing up here too, which is kind of making sense because you have Shield Mates, Library Witches, and Liminal Guides as sort of your early game plays. So you can get some extra value out of those right away.
Yeah, especially for a deck. Hang on, is this running Serene? No, it's just Wind of Fire. Okay.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of CL decks kind of shuffling between Fire and Serene.
Yeah.
And if you're running Serene, then I think Undeniable Truth makes even more sense because it does allow you to play those 3-cost allies on turn 1 and still be able to sack them.
Cremation Ritual is a bit awkward in Serene, as we know, so I think that sort of gives it a little bit of extra reach there to sort of play in that same sort of zone of generating value.
But even on Spirit of Fire, you need to be able to go second if you want to go liminal cremation.
Yes,
So
very
this
true.
allows you to go liminal undeniable truth on turn 1.
Yeah.
If you don't have that discard outlet, which is really just down to creative shock, you know?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of these decks we would see hasty messenger in the past or some other way to get your cards into the graveyard, and it's just creative shock now. Undeniable truth kind of taking over that spot.
Yeah, I'm also kind of interested to see Lost Providence here instead of Looking Glass with Unmake Duality. I think that's an interesting choice. Like he's kind of really hoping to go to 3 maybe a little bit faster than usual, because I know typically the Coup deck kind of wants to sit back at level 1, farm a few omens into its banishment, and then go.
Yeah, take advantage of the level 2.
Yeah. So that's an interesting thing to see here. So clearly it did well for him. Very
Yeah,
cool to
absolutely.
see. So congrats to KLVR there. And that will do for our coverage of the day 2 below the top cut that we thought was neat. So
Straight into the top cut. Let's go.
we got to talk about the top cut. So I would just like to point out, first of all, that half of this top cut is from California. And I think that's pretty neat.
All right. Well, first we should point out the element breakdown of the top cut.
Oh, yes, this is a very important thing to talk about.
It's 4 wind decks and only 1 fire deck.
Oh,
So the ratio on this top 8 is 4 wind, 3 water, 1 fire.
oh.
As opposed to, you know, the 50% wind and 40% fire that the rest of day 2 is.
You might have expected 1 water deck. No, 3 water decks.
3 water decks.
And they're all different water decks.
Yeah, that's where we're at.
Yeah. So we're going to get there, but first we got to talk about everything leading up to it. So in 8th place, we have one of our hometown heroes, Bry, on Wind Shadow Strike Tristan. This is a deck that he is pretty comfortable with. He's been playing this a lot. He's definitely been honing this, and his own new blend is here on display, and it's a spicy one. There's a lot of interesting tech we have in here. A lot of one-ups, for sure, with a lot of ratios that you can tweak in the board for your matchups.
I'm excited to see Abnegation showing up in Tristan decks, right?
Yeah.
Tristan decks typically been very, very focused in terms of how many cards they can put in that are Umbra.
This is something that Myco615, I think, started to make. He started the trend, basically, because he was the top Tristan at Manila. We're seeing this in conjunction with like Innovative Agility, so you can play a much more controlling game, which is a little bit terrifying, considering how much survival this deck already had once it gets to level 3. In spite of that, sometimes it can still feel like you're flying by the seat of your pants. So I think that the extra damage prevention is welcome. But there's a lot of new tech here we're seeing. I mean, I say it's new tech, but it's kind of old tech now because of Manila. Like Topsy Decree is obviously still doing very, very good here.
Right. Calming Breeze making a showing.
Calming Breeze making a showing. This is definitely a deck that can make use of it. Ensnaring Fumes has always been very, very good. We're seeing a Penumbra Waltz in here.
Yep.
That card is still
One of
useful.
Penumbra Waltz still kind of kicking around here
Yeah.
every once in a while.
Yeah.
And one Heavenly Guide,
Yeah. I mean, this is
which is
definitely a
really
good call.
such a meta call out.
This is a huge call out. Like, I think it makes a lot of sense right now because, as we said, level 3 meta. So I think you have a very good chance of hitting this and getting full value off of it. Like, people will see this and just be like, no, I can't let you resolve that. Sideboard's really interesting too. Regal Inquisitions, Dream Fairies, Eternal Magistrates, Tempest Downfalls, Orb of Sealing. A lot of very specific tech for very specific threats.
Yeah, yep.
So, big congrats to Bry. I am so excited that you finally made a top 8 and you got a Spirit. That's super cool.
Yeah, well done, man.
So, huge congrats. 7th place, we have Dragowell, also on Wind Shadow Strike Tristan.
Which, I mean, it's Dragowell.
I mean, it's Dragowell.
And this is sort of back to the Tristan roots, right? So if we
Little
talked
bit,
about
yeah.
kind of the one-ofs and extra tricks that
Yeah.
Brian had in his deck, all of that is mostly gone here.
Yeah, I mean, you might see like the Veiling Breeze is still here, and like a Topsy Decree and a Crystallized Destiny, but like the tech is kind of reduced in favor of just sort of the more consistently good Tristan cards and the more
Absolutely.
consistent strategies. So you're seeing more of a like sort of self-focused, like I'm going to do my thing game plan here.
Although, out of the board, there is a Nocturne's Oblivion.
Now that's a good one. I really like that one because, you know, you obviously do want the omens to reduce the cost, but Tristan is a deck that has so many cards and such high influence anyway that you can easily afford to pay this. Without
Yeah, you definitely get to the point where if you really need to deal with any one object, you have a way to deal with it.
Yeah. The Vertigo's Decree I think was also pretty interesting considering what else made it up here. I think that was a good
Right?
call.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also really good in the mirror because you've got to break those shadows somehow. Regals on the board. Love to see them. A lot of good stuff here. So, yeah, slightly more aggressive than the previously mentioned deck, but still, classic Tristan. So big shout outs to Dragowell. Very cool. In 6th place, Team True Caven on Fractals.
What a guy.
Did you expect to see Fractals this high up?
I really did not.
No, me neither.
Absolutely not. Not even a little bit.
I think Caven's on record as really loving this deck, though, so it would make sense that he would bring it back.
All right, well, I guess it's time.
Yep.
Goodbye.
Well...
No, I love Fractals as a deck, and it's also really interesting to me to see this kind of leaning deeper into water.
Yeah.
Whereas sort of the accepted best iterations of Fractals had, Gildises and stuff like that. We saw a little bit more in terms of its ally presence, and we're not seeing that in this deck.
Yeah, this felt like it's able to play a much more controlling, sort of longer game. Also, like seeing Fractal Refreshment come back, I think is interesting as a way to sort of cycle the deck. I think people took that out for a while. I'm not a Fractals player by default, so I may need someone else to defer to.
No, this is far more controlling than any other build of Fractals I've seen.
Yeah.
You usually don't see Frostbind in the Fractals deck.
Yeah.
Right? Thronekeeper Bullfrog, I think, is somewhat standard.
Yeah, that's kind of become sort of more the norm. Having a Spalling Cleanse in here too, though, I think is also pretty good.
Yeah, this is and also the Acquiescing Rejection.
Yeah, 4 rejections in here is not what I expected to see.
Well, the thing is, Unmake Duality is a good card.
It's true.
So, if your opponent will always let you draw 2, Acquiescing Rejection is a good card.
That's true. You want to draw 2? I would like to draw 2. Let's draw 2. Handshake moment. I think someone called it that I recently heard talking about it.
This is I think a meta choice because you cannot just include Acquiescing Rejection in any old deck, especially in a deck that's tempo focused.
Absolutely.
Which I think is why this deck is leaning a little bit more controlling, is because it wants to take advantage of that influence. It wants to take advantage of those extra cards. And generally, opponents are not willing to trade 1-for-1 on their important early sort of base building, infrastructure developing turns.
That makes a lot of sense. Fascinating. Very interesting.
Yeah. I would like to meet the person that is going to play Creative Shock on turn 1, and then when Caben Acquiescing Rejections them, goes, okay, we'll trade.
Yeah.
Because that is the correct move, I think.
It is.
A lot of the time, because letting your opponent have the influence is really dangerous.
It is. Constantly dangerous.
There is a card literally called Increasing Danger.
Yeah. Which I love. But in that case, the game is usually over after the danger is increased.
Right. So you have to be really, really careful about the situations in which you let Acquiescing Rejection do what your opponent wants it to do. And in the modern meta, with very little water around, people aren't playing around the things that water does.
Yeah.
And I think people may not have the same instincts playing into a controlling water deck.
It's true. I think, the meta up to this point, water has primarily been an aggressive deck. So bringing back a more controlling deck, I think, has to be a paradigm shift for some people.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, grass to Caven.
Did great.
Did great.
I gotta build this deck. I gotta play this deck
absolutely. Would love to see that. In 5th place, we have Sano, the SoCal Special, the TM32, Wind Seiryu. This is going to be a story in 2 parts, because this is not your grandfather's Seiryu, as it turns out. It's a little bit different. And you might ask, how? It's Seiryu. How different could it be? Well, if you take a look at the list, you might notice that the Seiryu's commands, there's only 2. The Harness Lightnings, there's only 3. And what we're seeing instead is a lot of influence building plays. So we already had stuff that's like Forest Cakes, we had Windmills, we had our Asins, we had our Reclaims, but we took up another level here. We have Turbocharges, we have Unmake Dualities with the Looking Glass, we have Scout the Land. Some decks run this,
Yeah.
It's not too crazy. But this is very much if you saw this played on stream by any of the TM32 guys, it's very much a paradigm shift for Seiryu, which is it's not focused on turboing to level 3. It's sort of more focused on doing this influence building at the early levels and then sort of slowly accumulating quest counters so that it can eventually close things out with a more powerful finisher. And in the meantime, it's got 3 Regal Inquisitions to say, hey, don't play those cards that you want to play. Get some new cards, and then I'll regal you again.
Yeah, being able to hold up cards and respond to what your opponent is doing. You know, you see cards like Incapacitate here. You see cards like Dream Fairy here. You see a couple of Stifling Traps in here, right? Ways to respond to what your opponent is doing while building your influence until you can get kind of a bigger turn at the end rather than turboing up. That's a really neat way to do things here.
Yeah. And it really shows that it can take advantage of that higher influence too, because it's running stuff like Incapacitate to really like guarantee its win cons. Which you do see you have seen sometimes. I think Raylem has run Incapacitates in his builds, but he's not necessarily going to level 3. He's going to level 3 much faster normally. We're also seeing the Candlelight Hourglass here, which is kind of spicy.
Yeah, that's a really interesting... I mean, if you're looking for something to trade a floating memory for a card,
yeah.
Candlelight Hourglass is just as good as anything else, but also includes the benefit of just being an absolute hassle for your opponent to play
just
around.
a big taxing thing. That combined with like a sensor and stuff like that means like it's really sort of shutting off your opponent's options. So there's a lot of cool stuff. Purified Thermal, also very, very good.
I mean, one thing about Goja that Goja's been able to do sort of the entire time that Goja's been around is play a lot of utility in the board.
Yes.
Right? Because you do have a couple of slots that are dedicated to your core plan, but not nearly as many slots as something like a Lorraine or a Merlin deck.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you look on their board here, you clearly see the utility. You have the 4 stolen chances because Assassin's terrible. Terrible to deal with. 3 Topsies, Beseech the Winds, 2 Calming Breezes, and Ensnaring Fumes, an Innovative Agility, and a Spellword Scepter, because you got to hit that finisher.
Spellword Scepter's cute.
You got to knock him out.
I do want to point out one main deck card that I haven't seen in many of these decks, which is Escape the Wreckage.
Yes, Escape the Wreckage, another influence positive play, which we don't normally see in this deck, but it's a great way to build up and build up and build up.
I mean, if you're looking at wind cards, right? You're looking at sort of wind allies and the way that they go neutral, or the way that they generate value. Escape the Wreckage is Cremation Ritual.
Yeah, it basically is.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So big shout out to Sano, going super far with this deck. We'll talk about it more later, spoilers. But before that, we got to talk about the one fire deck in the room, DJ Nova, who I'm not sure if he's a California native. I did see his name pop up at the SoCal Regionals this past weekend at the time of this recording, but I know he's also popped up in various other places, so I don't know what his main region is. But that's what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about the fact that he topped with a Fire Aetherwing Diana.
So this is a very high rolly deck.
Yes.
This has been a very high rolly deck for as long as it's been a deck.
It has.
It has gotten the ability to high roll even harder with PTM.
Yes. Ignition Draw.
Because Ignition Draw does absolutely terrible things to your opponent.
Yep. Burning Ether Charge, also quite good.
Yep. Burning Ether Charge allows you a little bit more burst and a little bit more velocity with the Kindle on it, which means the deck has just that little bit more extra power to kind of punch through anything that your opponent is doing to defend.
Yeah. To supplement that, which, by the way, the Trivariate Dream is kind of the heart and soul of this deck. Fortunately, if it gets interacted with, you're not out of the running because you have a bunch of other things, namely your Inert Sword and your Palver Sword, which also enable your big 5/3 Cheshire Cats, which you can swing with. So you have a backup Aetherwing in the form of Seeker's Aetherwing, and then you have a Quick Draw Piercer, which you can Blazing Throw at your opponent and incidentally draw a card. That's cool. I like that quite a bit. And then everything in this deck is just designed for pain, maximum pain. It will hurt a lot.
Yeah, I really like the Quick Draw Piercer here, actually. That's really neat.
Yeah, I also think Ignis Deus is a really interesting play here. I don't know how many other Fire Aetherwing Diana decks were running this, but this is a great way to sort of like go distant really fast with something like a Singeing Leap or something like that, and then just like, boom, I'm level 1, I got my Aetherwing out, I'm going to go slam hard.
So my experience with Ignis Deus was I was trying to experiment with it for turn 2 kills.
Yeah.
And it changed the influence math just enough that it was harder to put that together with Ignis Deus than I expected.
Okay.
Kind of the logic was, if I Ignis Deus, then I have a Materialize for Ranger Strides.
Yeah.
So Ignis Deus is essentially Blazing Throw 5 through 8. was the initial logic.
Okay.
And the influence on it ended up not quite working out as well as I wanted it to.
Interesting. Yeah.
Like, I thought I'd have a little bit more room, and instead the lines are really, really tight to make it work.
Yeah.
What it looks like is happening here with DJ Nova's deck is this is allowing him to materialize other things.
Yeah.
Right? This isn't about a extremely aggressive turn 2.
Right.
This is about getting ahead on the pace of materializations so that you can get something like a smoke bombs earlier. So that you can get something like a Palvor sword earlier.
That's really neat.
So that you can really charge up your Cheshire Cat and get some extra damage there.
True.
This is looking like it's trying to again, sort of diversify, right?
Yeah,
so it's not just all in on the ether charge hits, you also have the blazing throws for damage, you also have all of the spell damage from the ether charges, and you also have the Cheshire Cats to really get some extra damage.
Yeah, I think when you're running a main game plan that's like so high risk, high reward, but like vulnerable to interaction, you really need these backup lines. And it's really cool to see that here.
And something like Ignis Deus really accelerates those backup lines in a way that you wouldn't be able to otherwise. There's no other way to get to that stuff as fast as Ignis Deus and Fire.
Yeah, absolutely. Congrats to DJ Nova.
Yeah,
Very
well
cool.
done, man.
In third place, we have Fallen Boo on Carpsong Diana.
Yeah, and there was always going to be one.
Yeah.
I think there was no reasonable expectation of this top 8 not having a Water Diana deck.
Yeah, I mean, this is just a well-established archetype, piloted by another local hero of ours. So that's really cool. But there's a little bit of nuance here in this deck. I think the one thing that stands out to me is the Take Aim in the main board, which is an old ALC card that we haven't seen for a while.
Oh, hey, look, it's Blazing Throw.
Oh, yeah, it is Blazing Throw. Yeah, you're effectively giving a unit +4 if they're distant, which is pretty good. Pretty good. So that's a nice way to sort of cheat out some surprise damage. Also, the refreshing charges, which is another form of damage loaded into your Ether Wing, but also has the advantage of a little bit of extra mitigation, which is nice. I'm also surprised to see an Alacritus Huntress here. I always kind of thought of this as an Astra card, but it seems like he's doing pretty good work with it. Actually, no, using this to load a Weaving Mana Stream is actually pretty sweet. I take that back. No, this definitely works out. So, yeah, it's really, really cool to see. And then the board is just a lot of tech. Just a whole lot of tech. Yan Shao for the wake up defense is really cool. Mustangs obviously to kill your lanterns if you need to. Some top seed decrees because don't get top seed first in this deck.
Yeah, true.
Staggering strikes, reveal the hidden, all good. Overlapping visages, a one of to kill the dragon, which might be a little bit dangerous, but you have so much glimpse potential in this deck that you can probably see it. But all in all, this was if you watched the I think it was the quarterfinals. It was the quarterfinals of the semifinals where he was playing against Caven, and this was the most knockdown, drag-out fight that I've ever seen. It was just the constant, like, I'm just gonna pour all my eggs in this one basket till, like, I'm gonna block, and then we're just gonna sit here until, like, literally they're both exhausted, and they're just, like, slowly just doing haymaker after haymaker, back and forth, just trying to see what lands, and then finally it did, and it was Fallen Boo who came out on top, and that was
excellent,
freaking cool. So congrats. I'd love to see it. In second place, we have Liftersill. On part 2 of the TM32 special, Wind Seryu Guoja.
Yet another hometown hero. So this is the same deck.
Pound for pound, the same deck with one exception. Unlike Sano, he opted for 3 stolen chances instead of 4 and added a Peer Beyond into the side. Just in case.
Yeah, that feels like you want to have to deal with, Vanish from Sights or Innovate Agilities, and that seems like a good way to do it.
Yeah, it seems pretty good. So that is a nice little handy contingency. Otherwise, this is just the same paradigm shift as we saw with Sano's deck. I believe Liftersill is the person who crafted this deck. So it would make sense that he had the better finish with it.
This feels like a Liftersill.
It's a Liftersill deck. You see the Regals in the deck, and you're like, this is a Liftersill deck.
No, this is somebody has taken an aggressive combo deck and turned it into an influence machine.
Yeah.
This is a Liftersill deck.
Yeah, 100%. Well, he was on to something.
Yeah,
clearly.
It definitely worked out well for him.
His ratios are a little different because he is up 1 on the Harness Lightning and down 1 on the Byakos command.
Yep.
Little slight difference there. But otherwise, pound for pound.
This actually makes a lot of sense to me. I think the Harness Lightning has the potential to be more powerful with Byakos command.
Yeah, I think you're not putting your eggs into one basket as much compared to the commands. You can sort of play this on something and then just slam with it really hard.
Yep.
So
yeah, I do like Byaku's command turning Byaku's command and Harness Lightning versus Byaku's command and Seryu's command.
Yeah.
If you're worried about stuff like Topsy Decree, instead you're just smashing them for 18 on the ground.
You just beat them really hard. So yeah, so obviously he made this deck. He piloted it very well. And he almost had it.
Second place finish, wild.
But there can be only one. And the first place winner of this tournament is Superior on Water. Genbu?
The Dark Horse of Guoja.
I heard people telling me...
It's not Byaku, but it's still the Dark Horse of Guoja.
We don't talk about Byaku. Byaku's a tiger. It's not a horse.
My mistake.
That's okay. Yeah, I think a lot of people were saying this deck was dead.
Yes.
And...
I among them.
But yes. But here it is.
Sometimes when your deck falls enough out of favor, you can just bring it back and nobody will have sideboard for you, nobody will have tech for you, and nobody will remember that your deck was good for a reason.
This is like Fractals at Worlds all over again.
It really is.
Yeah. I mean, this list has changed a little bit, you know? We have Gentle Respites in the main because that's just a good turn one play.
Yeah, that got a lot better.
Which is quite good. We have Spalling Cleanse as a float option, which is very, very good. And we have a one of Excalibur, Cleansing Light, for whatever you want.
Might as well, right?
Yeah, whatever you want,
as long as you're going up to Luxem, as long as you're going up to 3. And this is an environment, let's face it, where Genbu does need to go up to 3.
Yeah, like...
the days in which you could just bring out Genbu on level 1 and just sit there the whole game, powering up your graveyard, and then scooting in with like 54 damage before leveling up to 2.
Yeah, that's not happening.
Yeah.
There's too much to mess with you at this point.
There's too much to mess with you. The damage output from other decks is just a little bit too high for you to sit on 1 for too long. Like, being able to get that extra draw from 2, being able to get that recover from 3.
Yeah.
And maybe that's before you flip, maybe that's after you flip. Like, that is pretty powerful.
Yeah.
And you can't just sit back.
It's crazy. It's wild. In the sideboard, we see Beastbomb Boots, obviously. Quite good for non-attack damage. Orb of Sealing, because Ciel exists and is a pain. Also sealing the Dragon's Arcane cards, pretty good. Stolen Chance, because Assassins are also a pain. Please don't let them fumes you. Frozen Dismissals, Song of Frosts, and 2 more Excaliburs, if you just really need to blow up a thing. Sometimes that's very useful.
So this deck notably not running Topsy Decree.
It is not running Topsy Decree.
Because of how much water it needs to have with
so
also the Fractal of Polar Depths.
Yes.
And Cerulean Decrees.
Yes.
And et cetera, et cetera.
Yes.
So that actually says something about the deck, that even without Topsy Decree, it's kind of making it to this level. But also, I think its position is because it was prepared for other decks running Topsy.
Yeah.
Right?
I think so.
Do we see a stratagem in here?
We definitely saw stratagem in here.
Okay. So prepared to do that as well.
Yep.
Prepared to potentially deal with their opponents answering their threats.
Yeah. I mean, I think at some point, if you put enough floating into the yard, eventually one Topsy's just not going to cut it.
That's very true. And that is the thing that Genbu is really, really good at. There's enough mill in this deck that it's like, okay, I have 9 cards in my yard. 5 of them are floating. You want to Topsy Decree me? Okay.
Yep. Anyway.
Moving on.
Here's Fractal of Polar Depths. But no, this is really cool. Obviously, Superior is an incredibly skilled player, so he's played the hell out of this deck.
Oh, yeah.
So this man obviously knows what he was doing. But to see a deck that I think a lot of people thought fell out of favor win this big of an event is very impressive and very cool. So big congrats to Superior. So that'll wrap up our coverage of Ascent London. So what do we take away from this?
Well, obviously the big takeaway is, oh my god, Water is playable.
Water is in fact more playable than we originally thought.
I think this is another... how do I phrase this? I think this is yet another way in which surprise is being overrepresented in Grand Archive.
Yes.
Right? We have seen numerous times where somebody shows up at an Ascent with an unexpected deck and sweeps the whole thing, or just does really, really well in a way that kind of is at odds with the general meta expectation of the deck.
Yeah.
And then that is never reproduced.
I kind of agree with that, yeah.
So they'll come in, they'll do well against the field because nobody's expecting it. And now that people know what it is, now that people are expecting it, the reason that it fell out of favor to begin with is back at the fore.
Yeah, I think you definitely also will see people sort of fast following the previous winner saying, hey, that deck won this event. I'm going to play that deck and win this next event. And then everyone's prepared for it, and then it doesn't do quite as well. And it's like, oh.
Yeah.
But now there's this new thing that's doing really well that we did not expect.
Yeah,
a
so
cycle.
I think part of the takeaway is people will still just play whatever the heck they want, right?
Yeah.
So despite the feel, I think of a lot of people, I think the consensus is that there are a couple of really overwhelmingly powerful decks, and you have to either play to beat them or play those decks. That's not true.
Yeah.
That's just not true. I mean, Seiryu represented very well.
Yeah.
Seiryu did very well for its presence in the field. Right? 20 decks in the field, 10 of them day 2'd, 2 of them top 8'd. So that level of conversion is really good. It shows that Seiryu is a very strong deck.
Yeah.
It is not the only deck in the field.
It's true. It's true. I guess if I were to take something away from this, it would be play what you enjoy, play what you like, and be prepared to fight things that you expect will be played, but also with the expectation that you might not even remotely see those things.
Yeah.
Because people prepared for them and knocked them out before they could get to you.
It also shows that I think you can adjust your deck to be good in the modern meta.
Yeah.
It just takes some cooking. It just takes...
You just need to plan your interaction
Absolutely.
a little bit more.
Right?
Carefully.
You know, seeing fractals come back in not like a totally different incarnation, but with some major adjustments to the game plan.
Yeah.
And did really, really well in the hands of Cabin, but
Yes.
did really well.
Yes.
Like, I think that says something. That really says that, you know, you don't necessarily need to abandon your pet deck when there are ways to adjust its game plan to account for the changes in the meta.
It's true. Also, really, just with Seiryu and
Yeah.
seeing what Team 32 did with that, which is just a much different style of play than what the majority of people sort of accepted was the normal way to play. That makes a huge difference too. So keep these things in mind when you're planning your next big event.
Yeah, it's definitely tougher, right? I think
Yeah.
the advice that we gave after Manila leading into London was pretty straightforward, right? Pretty streamlined. And that was the sense of I at least kind of felt like the meta was sort of distilled a little bit, was crystallizing in a way.
Yeah.
And that maybe we had a bit more of a hold on what was going to be good, what wasn't.
Right.
And we were wrong. Like, okay, I was wrong. You can be right. I was wrong.
Was I right? I'm not convinced I was right or wrong.
I don't remember. But, you know, this just shows that the meta is, in fact, still pretty wide open, despite the actual strength of the decks that people agree are the strongest decks.
Yep. So if you want to play something that's a little off the beaten path, do it. Do it.
Yeah, I think you might need to put in a little bit of effort in order to make that deck work in the modern era. You can't just stick to the same thing that used to work in the previous meta, because maybe it'll work, maybe it won't.
Yeah.
But there's definitely ways to adjust your deck in order to make it better into the kinds of things that you will be seeing today.
For sure. Absolutely. So that will do it for our coverage of Ascent London, the main event. However, we had some updates at the end to the B&R list. So the first thing we should talk about is we had a lot of adjustments to Category 1. This is the watch list, as it were. And we had a lot of cards added here.
Yeah, so part of this is I think it represents a sort of sea change to how weebs are approaching Category 1. I think they want it to be a little bit more broader. They want it to show a little bit more in terms of not what they think is too powerful, but what they think is potentially limiting future design.
Yes.
That's what sort of Category 1 has been about. And Category 1 isn't like, oh, we got to be careful, this card is stifling creativity or in deck building or is taking up too much share of the meta. Anything that does that is usually jumping straight to 2 or straight to 3, as we saw with Ryle.
Yeah, we had that happen. So yeah, this is kind of the category of like, oh, it's fine right now, but you know, maybe in the future it could get a little iffy.
Right, and that could be a sign that they're going to print something that synergizes particularly well or particularly badly with these cards, or a sign that this card does something a little bit too well that they want to be able to do in a more broad way they don't want eclipsed by the cards in this category.
Yeah.
Which I think is something that happened with Erupting Rhapsody.
Yes.
Like, Erupting Rhapsody, I don't think was banned on power level.
Yeah,
it was banned on Empower needed to be good.
Yeah, it's we want to do more stuff with the Fire Graveyard, and we can't do that as long as Rhapsody exists, because it'll get too nuts.
Yeah.
So we're just gonna rattle these off and just sort of maybe give our thoughts on them as we go. Grim Pastiche.
Which does something unique.
It does.
And does it very well.
Yep. Making a lot of things into fast speed is okay right now, but I think, maybe later it'll get a little wonky.
Yep.
For sure. Incandescent Reliquary.
At one cost, that makes this very hard to interact with.
It's tough to deal with, honestly. I think Fracturize is kind of your best bet, and beyond that, it's actually...
And there's not a lot of water out there.
Yeah, it's pretty tough. Pretty tough.
So this might actually be in the watch list on power level concerns in a way that almost nothing else is.
We'll kind of have to see how well Seryu does, because I feel like it's the only Goja archetype that's really playing this right now. But it is a very popular one. One of the most popular.
It sure is.
Topsy Decree.
Which, of course.
Yes.
So I think, again, this one is not here on power level concerns, but just on how good of a card it is compared to the other cards that do the things it does.
Yeah.
Which, right now, is nothing. Nothing else does the things that this card does.
Right.
But we're probably going to be seeing cards that approach these kinds of effects in RDO. And I think Weebs just doesn't want those cards to be immediately eclipsed by something that already existed.
That makes a lot of sense, right? If you've already set the bar so high, right, then it's kind of like, well, why play anything else? So I'll be interested to see how this one goes. Ranger Strides.
Yeah.
Don't take my Ranger Strides away. We'll take the Ranger Strides away from everybody else, but let me keep the Ranger Strides.
And, kind of the way that Weebs is looking at this one, sort of the rationale that they printed is that it is causing too many aggressive decks to focus in on one strategy.
Yeah.
Which is true. Ranger Strides. Let's be real. Ranger Strides is a very strong card.
Yeah.
And it makes other ways of trying to deal quick damage to your opponent a lot less appealing.
Yeah, it's definitely warping a lot of the aggressive strategies around it, where it's like if you're playing an aggressive deck, you're doing this or maybe like one other thing. So I guess that makes sense. Baby Green Slime.
Yep.
It's just a war criminal. Deserved. Why is it when everyone gets into trouble, it's always the slime cards?
Yeah, it's true, right? They're all very powerful because Sylvie needed something to get back into the mix. And it turns out they're so powerful that everybody else is running them too.
Whoops.
And then Weebs is like, hey, those are Sylvie's toys. You put those down.
You really just should have put Sylvie bonus on just the whole dang card to begin with, but...
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there's other ways that they could have printed it in order for it to be, just as real for Sylvie and not quite as real for all of the other win decks that want to take advantage of the incredibly powerful suppress effect that it has.
It's true. So we'll see what happens here. Alcahest.
And this one is because they want to be really careful about material destruction in material decks.
Crystalline Mirror was definitely in the same space for sure. And then last but not least, Unmake Duality.
Yeah, definitely not least.
Like...
So Unmake Duality is fascinating because it is causing Looking Glass to be Grand Crusader's Ring.
Yeah.
And that is something that I think Weebs is not particularly happy about.
No. We're not a finance channel, but if you look at the price of Grand Crusader's Ring right now, it's like possibly even under $20, and that's just... I was like, damn, that's just a huge drop in market value. That used to be the hot card. That I feel like it should be the standard, really.
And Weebs agrees, which is why Unmake Duality is on Watch List 1.
Yep. So we'll have to see how this shakes out in the future, but these are now sort of being looked at. But that's not all. We got a new Proxies Vault card.
Oh my God, Ken.
Which brings me to the end phase where I talk about one of my passion projects.
Yeah, tell me about Nico. Let's go. All right, so first we should discuss the card.
So the card is Sablemere Warden's Grip. This is a 0-cost water regalia item, Guardian Gloves. It has Nico bonus. As long as an opponent has 3 or more cards in their graveyard, you may pay 3 reserve cost to activate this card from your material deck. Cool. Great. The big one is you may pay 3 plus X reserve cost and banish Sablemere on Nico bonus to generate an Icebound Slam card and put it into your memory, then put X lash counters on your champion. Icebound Slam, notably, is banned.
Yep. Okay, so my first impression of this card is very similar to my first impression of Alice's card, the Mantle.
Yes.
Right? Which is as follows. Rile the Abyss was fantastic on turn 1. If you have to go to level 1 before you can activate your Rile the Abyss, it's a lot worse.
It's true.
Icebound Slam was fantastic on turn 1.
Yes.
If you have to wait until you're level 1 to activate Icebound Slam, it's a lot worse.
It's a lot worse. However, I still enjoy slamming someone for 13. So this is okay in my book.
Yeah, so this is actually doing something different than Alice's material, right? Because it's adding those extra lash counters.
Yeah, it is. And, notably, if you all have been following along at home, Magebane Lash is a card which has an attack stat based on the number of lash counters you have. And normally this is a very slow ramp up that you could only really do once you got Nico to level 2. Now this means you can potentially start threatening big attacks at level 1. And notably, Nico 1 was not a particularly exciting card. This actually means that it's sort of a good stepping stone for bigger and better things. Which means you can do your game plan a lot faster than you used to.
Yeah, this is really, really interesting. This enables some lines where you go to Nico 1 as your first materialize.
Yeah.
You activate Sablemere out of your mat deck.
Yep.
On your second materialize, you materialize Magebane Lash, and in your Reco, you activate Sablemere's ability in order to give yourself a bunch of lash counters and an Icebound Slam.
Put down that Icebound Slam.
And then on your third turn, you are Icebound Slamming for lots.
A whole lot. If you wanted to kill a Seiryu, this will probably do it. Pretty easily, honestly.
Yeah.
So that's not bad. If not, it can still go at their face, which is pretty useful. It's also still, obviously this is not as good as it would be on turn 1, but you still get a bunch of stuff into the yard, which means you can potentially play off of that for some reason. And there are a lot of interesting ways that you can take it. So what I want to do for this end phase is sort of highlight some quick wins that you can consider. These are decks that have been cited in the wild that you can sort of take inspiration from if you want to build Nico and do something cool with that. So the very first one I'm going to call out is from the True Champion Gaming Online League, formerly known as the Yeti. Jim, I believe you commentated this one.
I don't think I commentated this match.
Not this match, but you were in the pool. This is Quest on a Water Allies Nico, which I like to affectionately call Oops All 3/4s. Because in addition to running Frostborn Paladins, it is also running Vigil Rampart, which is a Norm 3/4, as long as you are a Guardian. Aquifer Sinistral, which is a 3/4 with Taunt, as long as you're a Guardian. Mind you, it starts Hinder, but that's still pretty good. And it's also running Tweedledee Contrarian Poet, which is a 3/4 some of the time. But after that, it sits there comfortably as a 0/4 Taunt.
Right. Yeah.
So this is just another flavor. Notably, one thing about Sablemere is that because you're not Icebound Slamming on turn 1 anymore, you actually can afford to run more Norm cards in your deck, which is being shown here by running 4 Visual Ramparts and 3 Cheshire Cats. So this is still doing kind of the mill thing. It's trying to get a lot of float in the yard, and it's going to threaten you with big Ravishing Finale and a big Icebound Slam and just beat you down with a bunch of allies and ideally control the board while going for game.
Yeah, this is neat. It's a little tempo oriented, but it's very aggressive for a tempo deck.
Yeah. The other nice thing is because of Looking Glass, you can now run a Nerd Sword, which is a much easier thing to deal with, swinging with, than Bulwark Sword used to be. Tidal Claymore is also just a really good card. Also, Enfeebling Orb is a Blinding Orb that anyone can use, and Blinding Orb is already deep in one of Nico's potential tools. So that's pretty sweet. If you're looking for something a bit more traditional, like sort of more akin to the old school Nico, you might want to look up Nathan's List from the Good Games Town Hall Regionals from the 1st of February. This is kind of more traditional, but it's leveraging the Looking Glass with Unmake Duality to sort of build up that big influence right away, and it's using some things like Reckoning's Wake as an initial sort of float to also sort of control your mills a little bit, control what's on top of your deck. But otherwise, it's just sort of playing a more controlling game, sort of putting a lot of float in the yard, building up a big repertoire so it can just, defend itself while eventually doing big swings. It's also running Peer Beyond because don't let them stealth your Icebound Slam.
True.
That's pretty good if they do that, and bad for you.
And being able to ephemerate it out of the yard is just a really strong play
Yeah.
for a deck that already has a bunch of inbuilt self-mill.
It's really nice. It's also running overpowering defense in the sideboard, which is a way to negate stuff while you're attacking. Ooh. So that's really nice. So if they try to Song and Frost you, just like, no.
Them Guardian powers.
Guardian powers. But the real winner, the real star of the show, is from the Core TCG SoCal Regionals, which featured Swords on a water slice and dice Nico.
Oh my god.
This is ridiculous. So if you want a good strategy that doesn't rely on you having a bunch of float in the yard and not having to deal with a sensor wrestle piece, why not consider prep counters? As it turns out, there's a lot of ways to generate prep counters that are also very friendly to this game plan. Will to Save was in the Merlin Reco. It rests your champion, puts a prep counter on you, and has unconditional floating memory. Undeniable Truth lets you sack one of your allies to draw a card and get a prep counter. Notably, this deck is running 4 Library Witches and 4 Liminal Guides.
Ah, yes. Cremation Ritual in Water.
Cremation Ritual in Water. Also, if your Bullfrog is not long for this world, undeniably, you will draw a card. And also Corhazi Trapper, which not only is a good way to generate prep counters, but also use the prep counters to protect yourself from dying so that you can build up for something big, whether that be the Icebound Slime you generated, or the Ravishing Finales, or the 2 Slice and Dices that you have, which, with a big Magebane Lash, is gonna hit for a lot of damage.
Huh.
So that's cool.
Turns out there's a lot of things that you can do with Nico.
You can. There's one last thing that I will call out, which I don't think I have the necessarily the permission nor the credibility to talk about it, but I have heard rumblings of some people playing fractals with Nico.
Whoa.
So you can run Zhang Jiao to go really, really plus, and then eventually you can, on your Sable Mirror cracking turn, you can rest all your fractals, put your hand down, and I don't want to know how big your Magebane Lash is after that. But it's gonna hit for a lot.
This sounds like war crimes.
It does sound like war crimes. They are war crimes that have not made it to an LGS near you yet. But maybe you can be the one who introduces them.
Oh boy.
If you cook hard enough. So Nico, she's out there. She's on the loose. If you see a Nico in your area, please alert your local authorities and post the deck list online so that I can eventually test it.
Well, thank you, Ken, for this whirlwind tour around decks I will hate to see opposite me.
You're welcome. It's going to happen possibly next week.
Oh, Guardians, why?
So anyway, our next episode is probably not coming for a while.
Well, we'll see if maybe we can have a filler episode.
Yeah, we got to talk about something. Maybe, so we have a couple ideas. There's the Mortal Ambition Alter came out recently. Maybe we'll do an updated draft primer.
Heck yeah.
Maybe we'll cover some regionals that have come out with a little bit more detail, maybe seeing how things look after the Proxia update. Maybe we'll just hibernate until Los Angeles. We got to talk about something before then, though.
We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out. Yeah. So there's going to be plenty to talk about, I'm sure. Also, I would like to highlight from the previous end step, since we're talking about Los Angeles and the RDO premiere. Jim, I believe your prediction has been coming true so far. The ultimates are wildly over the top and probably not suited for competitive play. At least from the one that we've seen.
I'm telling you, man.
So
on the other hand, it does cost 15.
It does.
Which means that CL can run it for Oblation.
That's an Oblation upgrade.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe Oblation stocks are going up. Anyway. So that'll do it for us for this week. Please look forward to our next episode where we will be talking about something, anything. God knows. Could be draft. Could be regionals.
Could be you.
Could be you. Did you top our regionals recently? If you did, we'll be talking about you for sure. Anyway, thank you for listening to the Corhazi Outlook. As always, take care.
Take care.